It's October 14. This morning was the solar eclipse, and I'm in Elko, Nevada, so I got to see the full eclipse. Well, it was 90%, and that was the maximum that anybody could see, so that was pretty special. I was at the right place at the right time. Now, I'm pretty stoked because I'm hiking in the beautiful Lamoille Canyon. I don't know what trail this is. It's off of the Lamoille Camp, which is closed for this season, but the guy said I could hike here. So it is a spectacular day. Look at these leaves. I mean, isn't that just brilliant? Oh, this is gonna be a good hike. It is just majestic. These mountains are incredible. I actually was here a year ago, but couldn't get any hiking in because there was snow. So I knew I wanted to come back. They call it the Swiss Alps of Nevada. So this is incredible that I get to do it. There is fresh snow way up there, but I'm not afraid of a little fresh snow. I've been staying at South Fork State Recreation Area. It's not my favorite. I was there last year. But anyways, it's close to spectacular stuff, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, I have to go by the outhouses all the time. The only bad thing about today is that it's Saturday and there is a ton of people around. I bet through the week it wouldn't be near as much. I could go left or I could have gone right. I went right because some people went left. And I met up with one guy and he said that there's no bears here, so I'm bringing bear spray for no reason. But that's okay. At least it's good to know there's no bears. Well, continuing on in Deuteronomy, Moses reminisced when the children of Israel stood before God in Horeb, and God told Moses, "Let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children." Fear of God means to revere and respect him, to be in gut-wrenching awe of his amazing mighty power. This fear encourages one to obey him and discourages disobedience. But when we love him as our Father and friend, we do not need to be afraid of him in a negative sense. This is getting wet. Did you know that fear, or being afraid, is the opposite of faith? Anyway, God has always been careful not to show his form to anyone, even while he speaks. Because if nobody knows what he looks like, they cannot carve an idol that would be an accurate material representation of him. Oh, I am just loving this trail. Oh, is that a bit of a waterfall? Moses also said, "And take heed, lest when you lift your eyes to heaven and see the sun and moon and all the stars and all the host of heaven, that you feel driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord your God has given to all peoples under the whole heaven as a heritage. Other ancient Near Eastern peoples worshipped heavenly bodies as gods, but in the Israelite creation account, the Lord simply assigns them the role of providing light. Well, this is interesting. So glad for new shoes with good grips. Many times Moses tells the people that God is a jealous God. That does not mean envious, but jealous to protect his exclusively intimate covenant relationship with his people, which is like a marriage. I see a cairn up here, so that's encouraging. Because this massive rock was just, didn't know where to go. But good, yes, here we are. Did you know that the Ten Commandments are found again in Deuteronomy? Moses states the Ten Commandments in his own words, with a few variations from the original word for word that he got from the Lord. The moral ethical principles of the Ten Commandments provided the foundation for Israel's covenant obligations to God. You know, I just do not see any clear-cut path up here. So, sadly, I made it this far, but I'm not going to risk it. Plus, look it, I am in the shade, and over there is the sunshine. So, I picked the wrong time of day to do this side of the canyon. The Ten Commandments start with, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Moses quoted the introduction to the Ten Commandments, which makes it clear that God had given his law to a people whom he had already redeemed. Thus the law is placed within the framework of a covenant based on pre-existing grace. Obedience is not to earn salvation, which comes by grace. So no other gods and no carved images of gods. Let's talk about this a little more. It belittles God to represent him by any outward form. Material representations of God can only give a distorted and imperfect concept of his majesty and infinite character, and therefore depreciates God. The only earthly image that can even remotely resemble God is the human character transformed into his divine likeness. Okay, I need to find my way out of here. Oh, there it is. Then comes, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Vain literally means falsely, hypocritically, or in a thoughtless, common manner. Man's attitude toward God is to be marked with reverence, and this is to be reflected in words and deeds. I better pay attention here, it's pretty steep. Next, Moses says, observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Nobody is to work on that day, not even the animals. And remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there with an outstretched arm and with a mighty hand. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day holy. Here, God's deliverance of Israel from slavery in Egypt is the reason for resting and allowing the servants to rest on the Sabbath. So Sabbath celebrates God's redemption from slavery to work. Do you get it? Everyone is free on the Sabbath. In Exodus 20, Sabbath should be kept because God rested on the seventh day of creation and made this day holy. According to Jesus, God originally made the Sabbath as a benefit to human beings. That is, they could rest as free persons. There is a close connection between the creation and redemption reasons for the Sabbath in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. Deliverance from Egypt, which God accomplished through his mighty creative power, restored to his people the freedom that they should have been enjoying since creation. The primary purpose of the Sabbath as an institution is to safeguard the relationship of the Creator with his created. As physical health calls for a day of rest each week, so spiritual health requires the Sabbath for exercising the mind and heart in quest of God, that we may feel after him and find him. Then Moses says, "Honor your father and mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be long and that you may be well in the land that the Lord your God is giving you." Only the child who learns to honor and respect the authority of his parents will learn to honor and reverence the authority of God. Did your parents command respect from you? Then come some basic commands that don't need an explanation, like not murdering, not committing adultery, not stealing, and not bearing false witness against your neighbor. Lastly, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and you shall not desire your neighbor's house, or his field, or his servants, or his animals. Then God reminded the people that God had spoken all of these words and had written them on 2 tables of stone. And the people remembered how their ancestors were afraid at the sound of God's voice. They thought they would die. The people had been duly impressed by the majesty of God and realized as sinners they could not live in his presence. Consciousness of sin made them fear for their lives. So, even in the end times, the wicked people will choose to rather die than live in his presence. Anyway, the Israelites themselves had asked that Moses convey the messages from God to them so that they would be spared the trauma of receiving direct communication from the Lord. Moses reminded them of this to emphasize the fact that they were to listen to all of the commands that he gave from God to them after this, as if they were directly listening to God himself, which is the way they had heard the 10 Commandments. Their profound awe at the manifestation of divine power and glory was the very attitude that God wanted to produce in their mind and heart. Oh, I got a beaver dam down there. It is only when a man becomes humble in God's sight, when he realizes his utter sinfulness and helplessness, in contrast to God's righteousness and omnipotence, that God can work in him and with him. God says, "Oh, that they had such a heart in them, that they would fear me and always keep all my commandments, that it might be well with them and their children forever." Our life is but a projection of the thoughts that are in our heart. God is not so much concerned with the outward acts as he is with the motives that prompt the acts. If a man purposes in his heart to cooperate with God, if there first be a willing mind, then the life will be transformed accordingly. The healing hiker rating for this first trail I've ever done in Lamoille Canyon is a 5 out of 5. This is a hidden gem. It is the discovery of a lifetime. I will be doing many more hikes here, I'm pretty sure. It's about an hour before sundown. So yeah, it's getting dark, as you can tell. So I made it down off that mountain just in time. I'm very grateful. Heart obedience is the only true obedience. It alone is acceptable to God. And that is why he wants to write his law on our hearts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.